Hello everyone, so during this episode of the Skyline build, we'll be adding some wheels to this thing and making the front ones spin and turn, and for those of you who are curious, it will work on Hot Wheels.
Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well, and thank you for tuning into Moose Motion. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed the content, comment below what you think, share with your friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if you're new, and be sure you have your post notifications turned on so you don't miss any of the new content. Anyway, thank you for your support, it's highly appreciated.
So, up first and foremost, we're going to turn this, little paperclip into, actual steering components here. First, obviously, straighten out your paperclip so it's, nice as straight as you can get it, then cut it into 2 halves. Then, using a pair of needle nose pliers, you're going to want to twist the paperclip around into little coils, essentially. And for future reference, this part is basically going to be the sleeve for the actual part that makes the wheel, turn as well as spin. Now we're going to make the rod that actually goes inside that sleeve, and for that we're going to just use some, basically steel rod as well, just a little thicker in gauge, and then bend it accordingly. You want 2 essentially 90-degree angles to start with. One will be for the wheel, the other will be for the push rod, which will keep both wheels working in unison. Then you're going to want to drill a hole in your wheels or rims, so obviously at that point your rim can actually fit onto the rod appropriately and spin around in circles. And for this next bit, we're going to kind of just move away from the steering components for a short little bit and, focus on making some actual deep dish wheels because, this little Skyline is pretty much based off comments for the build process. So if you have any suggestions on what you would like to see added on or taken away from the little clay car, let me know in the comments section below. And one thing I've been kind of pondering the last little while, the concept drawing, which if you haven't seen or caught up on the rest of the series, links are available in the post description below on the Skyline build, as well as some of my other little cartoons. But the thing that I've been pondering is, the spoiler in particular, and if you've seen the concept drawing, obviously we've veered quite a different direction at this point, but that is okay. Personally, I think the way we're going actually looks a lot better than my concept drawing. So, basing this build off the comments has been quite a lot of fun personally so far, and I can't wait, to hear from you guys to see what more suggestions we have for future builds, as well as this one. At any rate, the spoiler is kind of the big thing. Don't know whether or not I want to go with a ducktail or the big kind of, 2000 style spoiler, for lack of a better term, that you see on the concept drawing. I don't really personally like those very much. I kind of like the ducktail, although being a rear-wheel drive car, I do kind of see the purpose of having a bigger spoiler. At any rate, that's one thing I've been pondering, so if you have any other suggestions, let me know. And, be sure to keep your eyes peeled for Milton the Moose, and for those of you who are, kind of unaware, he's kind of a little character or mascot for the channel, and if you timestamp correctly when he exactly shows up during the build process, you will get a shout out in the next how-to video, and, he's a little harder to spot in this one than perhaps some of my other videos, so be sure to keep your eyes peeled, dear viewers. With that being said, quick shout out to Mr. TigerHD, who happens to have a very sharp set of eyes, who is really, keen on finding that moose, so watch out for that guy. And one thing I also should probably mention, I do apologize for taking a little longer for this video upload than normal. However, there was, quite a lot of brainstorming involved with this particular episode, more than usual, because I wanted to come up with a new steering component, components, I should say, or method to do it. That way it's a little more uniform, and I shouldn't have to brainstorm each time for a different car on how to make the front wheels spin and turn. Because thus far, every single car I've made has had a slightly different design, and it's kind of, a little bit of a pain trying to go through the entire engineering process on what's going to basically be taking place, versus something that will take a little less time overall and work on just about everything. Unfortunately, that means I'm going to have to take one stint bit where it takes a little longer than usual, and this was that stint bit. So that's why I have, uploaded this video a little later than normal, plus I wanted a little more time to give more voiceover, essentially, to kind of help guide for, people who might be curious into actually making their wheels spin and turn, because, that's not exactly an easy feat to do, especially on a rolling sculpture, which is essentially what I'm making. But for those of a lot of my viewers are particular into Hot Wheels, and I think that this one would be quite interesting for a lot of them in regards to, well, making your wheels actually spin and turn on your mini cars, because this little setup should actually work quite well for your Hot Wheels stuff too. Obviously, you don't have to worry about having a clay engine in the way like I do, which unfortunately kind of becomes an issue later on, which we'll discuss towards the build process, or build rundown at the end of the video, but that's a future me problem, so. And for those of you who do little die-cast Hot Wheels, it's not as much of an issue, obviously. Depending on how much into detail you like to go, if you're like me, who likes to get, well, pretty much every little part under the hood, then yeah, you might have some issues in regards to your engine bay bumping into things, but yeah, that's a future me problem, so screw that guy. At any rate, at this point in the build, we're just about finished making off these deep dish wheels, which was a request, which was not exactly easy thing to pull off either. However, personally, they look pretty cool. Well, doing the voiceover well a little after the cars got the wheels on it, I know for a fact that they look actually pretty cool. So it was definitely worth the extra time and effort. At any rate, once this is done, we'll be moving back onto the actual steering components for the little Skyline. So now that we're actually back onto the front end components again, basically there isn't actually too much for us to do at this point in order to get it onto the car, so we're going to line up basically a push rod as well as some caps to kind of help, well, keep those wheels actually on. So basically the push rod is just aluminum actual armature wire that's hooked around a couple times to hook onto the back half of your, well, steering component essentially, so that way both wheels work in unison. But first we're going to make some caps for those wheels so they don't fall off while they're turning. So all you actually really need to do for this is, well, either grab some wire or the fine piece of your actual, whatchamacallit, the paper clip, like the plastic ones. You can cut the liner off for those if you're using smaller gauge wire than me, and then just slide that onto the actual rod as a little cap and then glue it on accordingly, so that way it, well, basically acts as a little washer and it doesn't actually fall off at that point, and it looks like a little cap or dust cap essentially for your, well, wheel setup or brake setup assembly, which the dust cap is, well, generally kind of on something a little older, not so much on modern cars, but in this case, well, we're just going to kind of disguise it. Now, the big thing that, well, if you're making any sort of wheels turn, you're going to want to make sure you have a substantial amount of room for, well, actual turning. So I had to do a lot of carving, unfortunately, because, well, the wheel turning assembly was made, well, after the fact. So the car's frame essentially wasn't really built for it. So that's one thing to take in mind if you're doing this, well, on a little Hot Wheels car. You are going to have to cut a lot into that little plastic essentially to groove out enough space for your wheels to, well, turn left and right. And then once that's all done, all we have to really do is add in the push rod that we've, well, bent up accordingly so it fits up nice and straight, and then add little caps so obviously that doesn't fall off in the future. Now, speaking of the future, this is at the point where we're doing the build rundown, which will be running over what we basically just did, as well as what's going to be taking place in the future. So, during this video, obviously, we got all 4 wheels on this little clay car, so that's kind of a good thing. So that means at this point, it won't be too much longer before joining those cars in the background there, and, well, punishing clay tires like the rest of them. Now, obviously, the biggest hurdle we got over during this episode in particular was, well, those front wheels, now that they can actually spin and turn. And I've come up with a design that should work fairly well for just about every car that I make, as well as, well, other people who make little, well, Hot Wheels cars in particular. It should work quite well, being quite, well, small armature wire pieces. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space and should work well for Hot Wheels. And, well, there's one issue that we're going to have. Unfortunately, the turbo plumbing that I have made for the RB26 is, well, kind of getting in the way of our rather radical, well, steering radius there. Because I want this thing to be a drift car, so obviously I'd like to push it through some sick angles in the future. So, yeah, there's going to be some more turbo plumbing, unfortunately, with this car, which has been a common problem thus far, unfortunately, but that's for the future. And speaking of the future, if you're new, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my new content, and have your post notifications turned on. Smash the like button if you enjoyed the content, comment below what you think, share with friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if you're new. Anyway, that's enough from me. Till next time, take it easy, and I've gone way past the actual credits. Whoops.